Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, thanks.
Morning.
I guess I shouldn't expect
Morning.
a response. Thanks so much. It is always, for only holding these once a month, they sure seem to come around pretty quick. And so I think this is my third one, which means the beginning of a third month here at GovOps. And I want to start by saying thank you to all of you who have reached out. I have felt very warmly welcomed here at Government Operations and have had a tremendous time traveling to divisions, meeting with division directors, meeting with other agency directors as we do our annual listening tour to take our temperature and see how we're doing. I'm hoping that my mic is actually working this time. I have had a few technology challenges since I arrived, but I will tell you, I think I've had 4 or 5 Zoom or Google Chat meetings in a row that the camera, the microphone, and the speaker have all worked at the same time. That proved to be a challenge for a bit. So hopefully this will work through our conversation today. And you'll be able to hear me and the technology will work. I want to start out with, I hope, since we're in summer and summer based on the heat, summer has certainly arrived and is cooking all of us. Hope you're spending adequate time at the pool or beautiful lakes or reservoirs or the mountains, or doing something to get out and relax and enjoy the summer months. For me, they always go by way too fast. It always seems like it's the fastest time of year. And I with this new assignment and a shuffle and change in my life that came pretty quick, I have not made it to the mountains yet with my camper, but hopefully we'll have a couple days over the Pioneer Day weekend to be with my kids up in the mountains outside of Cedar and enjoy at least one camp outing in the mountains. But be sure to take some time to relax, unwind, and enjoy the beauty that is Utah. I also want to say and offer congratulations to all of you throughout the department as we've been visiting with other cabinet members and leadership of other state agencies. It has been fun, and we had one just, I think it was Monday of this week, that Chris and Marilee and I made our way up to Salt Lake and visited with Director Mon of the Labor Commission and his leadership team. And it was so fun, as we said, our introductions, and I said, certainly I'm new here, but trying to do a listening tour as we do each summer to see how can we help you? What are the services working good? We are behind the scenes on so many things for state agencies, and are there areas that we can improve or do better and so forth. And their report was the most wonderful report I've ever heard, because they just literally said, you guys are wonderful. We love government ops, and whether it's facility issues or HR issues or risk issues and so forth, purchasing, et cetera, they went down through the list and just said, we don't have any complaints. You got great teams in place. They've always been there to help us out when we've needed them. They've gotten us through critical points and issues as they have come up, and have done so in a great manner. And anyway, it was just this fabulous report. It was wonderful to hear that kind of praise for our department. And so my thanks to each and every one of you that are reaching out to state agencies. I know it's not just Labor Commission. There are a lot of them out there and a lot of services being provided. And so my thanks for your dedicated efforts and for the knowledge that you bring to the table and all of these various issues, so that those state agencies out there know that they can call somebody here at Government Ops and get the direction, the guidance, the answers that they need, or the help that they need in their operations. So I just love that. We are heading into budget season. I almost hate to say that, because every time we survive a legislative session, and this certainly was the case for me in higher education and when I was at GOPB, you just feel like we need to take a couple years off to recoup and recover from that, And before you know it, budget forms are due and requests are needed, and ISF rates have to be set and so forth. So Jake has talked with leadership on Monday morning in our meeting. He's come up with a calendar of due dates and so forth. GOPB is pushing us to get our budget requests in a little sooner than usual so that their team has more time to crunch the numbers and ask questions and delve deeper into things. So we're having to advance our calendar a little bit more than we have in the past. And so if you're involved or in that budget process, please be mindful that the dates are going to come a little faster this year as we pull together the requests. I intend, and I think meetings have been scheduled for me to meet with each of the division directors and their finance folks as we pull together a department budget and talk through what the priorities will be. We know with internal service fund agencies, and that involves many of you, that rate setting process this year is probably going to be intense. The compensation adjustments the last 2 years have been larger than anticipated. And for example, risk, we keep building more buildings, and so we're having to add more dollars for more coverage and so forth. That I have made folks aware on Capitol Hill and the governor's office and the legislative fiscal analyst's office that they really need to be anticipating that we're going to come in with some rate increases, and probably more significant rate increases than they've seen in previous years, because we've gotten behind the 8 ball in a number of things. And that comp really drives that. For a government entity like us, that 90% or so of our cost is all labor and personnel, then it certainly is the case that when the legislature comes through with a larger comp package than anticipated, and we're grateful for it. So thank our friends on the Hill for that, but that has to be reflected in rates going forward, because as those of you who work with rates know, we are often setting those rates 18 months in advance of the beginning of a fiscal year, so we're a little bit behind on those. There'll be other twists and turns. I've been a finance guy most of my career, and so I look forward to delving into the division budgets and the ISF rates and the rate setting process and so forth to understand how the sausage is made, so that I can be helpful up on the Hill. We've had, I don't remember if I talked about this or not in our last meeting, we've had a number of conversations with legislators as we start prepping for the session and for legislation that we feel like we need to work on and pass. They are busy, particularly in the Ledge Research Office, because they already have more requested bill files open than all of the bills they passed last year during the session, which set a record for the number of bills passed by the legislature. So there will be a tremendous amount to sift through when we get to that wonderful 45 days in the middle of winter. And our team is preparing for that, and how we're going to track all of the bills, the data, the information, and so forth. So anyway, if you have questions about the budget process or want to provide input, certainly would encourage you to reach out to your leadership and make sure that word gets back to us in the executive director's office, and to Jake in particular, as we move forward. And then we'll look forward to setting priorities and working the Hill. There are a number of critical areas that I have been working with Capitol Hill, and I think you'll see something in our next newsletter about risk management. The insurance industry, for any of you who own a home or have recently purchased a home and are trying to buy insurance, probably recognize that property insurance rates are absolutely going through the roof. And thankfully, you don't live in California or Florida or some other states where major insurance providers are basically either pulling out of states altogether, or at least not writing new policies. There was just a couple days ago an article in the Wall Street Journal about a major national insurance company that is no longer writing property insurance, umbrella insurance, or liability insurance in the state of Florida. And so we're seeing this dynamic here in risk management. And as we looked at renewing the premiums for the insurance that we buy, risk is really a self-insurance fund. The state has historically bought $1 billion in coverage on property for any damage that happens to the facilities that we cover, and another $525 million earthquake insurance. And as we went to renew those policies for July 1st of this year, with the dollars that we had approved through the last rate setting process, the most we could buy was $400 million in total versus the billion we've historically had, and $100 million for earthquake coverage compared to the 525,000 that we've had, or 525 million that we've had in the past. So I had a wonderful visit with my good friend Jonathan Ball, who is the legislative fiscal analyst, and just said, Jonathan, for an extra, I'm $6 million short from being able to lock in policies to cover our historic levels of $1,525 million. And it seems penny wise and pound foolish to not come ask you for some additional dollars. And through a series of meetings, including GOPB and the leadership there, and Jonathan, and then Executive Appropriations Committee chairs, and ultimately the Speaker and Senate President, they were all in agreement that we needed the same coverage as we've had in the past, and so they've committed to provide $6 million in additional funding when they next meet, probably be in the general session, that they'll reallocate some dollars for risk management to help. But that's also come with a charge and a commitment on our part that we're going to have to rethink how we provide insurance, because we can't buy our way out of this. The premium increases that we're basically absorbing from the insurance companies was at 30% this year. We've had some pretty steep increases in the past years, and so we can just see that this trend is going to be unmanageable for us. And so we'll engage in conversations over the next year about how we're going to provide more self-insurance, quite frankly, rather than trying to buy our way out of it. And we just don't see a lot of relief coming in the insurance industry, because there have been a couple years of really bad fires and floods and tornadoes and all sorts of storms that have caused a tremendous amount of loss for the insurance providers. And so investors who historically have invested quite a bit in the insurance industry are pulling their dollars out. And so we're really in a pinch there. That's just one example of some of what we're grappling with and will continue to work with through the legislative session. I'm going to turn a minute over to Dan. Dan, are you out there for a gold minute?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to share some thoughts with us?
There, a couple Dans look nervous on the screen when you said you were going to turn over to Dan there. I see you, Dan, in that conference room looking nervous. Just a quick update. Things are going very well. I want to thank everybody for the positive attitude that they're bringing to this process. Let me share something with you that has been shared many times, but one of the most important findings over the past 5 to 10 years from Gallup is from Gallup. And in their polling, they found that 70% of the variance in engagement levels on teams comes directly from the supervisor, or primarily from the direct supervisor. And so these efforts that we're making, a very ambitious, in one sense, very ambitious effort for all of us to commit to training in gold is not without foundation. Is not without evidence, but still we recognize that there's a sacrifice for all of you coming, to a half-day class quarterly, as well as participating in the book club. And we've tried to ease some of that burden, as we announced last time, with making the coaching optional, that aspect. But we also recognize that you have lots of other training requirements, virtual training requirements. The experiences that we've had in the classroom have been really good, really positive, and we're really enthused by the quality of the leaders that we have in our supervisor and management ranks in gold. So nothing really novel or in terms of policy or process to announce, other than to say thank you, everybody, as we continue. We're halfway through this first year of gold, and we're really enthused and excited about the experiences that we've had there. So please keep it up. We will continue to make tweaks as we need to make it as effective as possible and to accommodate as well as we can. But on the whole, Director Dodge, that's what I have, unless there are any questions.
Awesome. Questions from anybody? I know I'll answer this one because after Dan's presentation last month, we had a number of calls and questions come in about our non-supervisory staff being able to engage in these gold trainings, and we'd love for that, but we don't have the resources to provide it to everybody. So at this point, the gold training has just been for those in some level of supervisory position. So my apologies. We've engaged in some conversation about what we can do going forward, but it'll take some additional resources. Okay, with that, let me hit just a couple nuts and bolts things, and then Melissa's going to talk about an update on our GovOps challenge and a summer party for GovOps. For pay for performance, I appreciate all of you and the time that you've spent with your leadership and supervisors in working through. This is new, we know, and hope that it will be rewarding, and that the legislature will continue to fund additional pay for performance bumps in this process. We appreciate I've not been a huge fan. I probably shouldn't confess this up front, but I've not been a huge fan of traditional performance evaluations that generally happen once a year. They generally happen right before it's time to give folks pay raises, and often I have found that there are many supervisors that have a hard time, frankly, having crucial conversations with their friends and on the team that they're leading. And often I have found and heard people say, well, this employee is not doing the best that they could, but if I give them a poor performance evaluation rating, then they won't get a raise this year, and we're all underpaid and everybody deserves more. So there's a lot of nuance to that, but I'm hoping with quarterly meetings and the opportunity to sit down and set goals and identify some areas that you want to work and improve in, and whether that's additional training we can provide or what resources we can bring to the table as the employer. I hope that this will be a great year, and that there'll be a lot of conversations among all of you and your supervisors and the leadership team to get feedback back to us on what things can we do better, how can we help more in that process, but also how can we help you as an individual to improve your training, certification, those sorts of things, but to improve yourself as an individual, and quite frankly, to be happy. I really irritated my youngest daughter, who was a cheerleader at Manti High School, and between her sophomore and junior year, when I announced that I had accepted a position at Southern Utah University and we'd be moving to Cedar City. And she was pretty angry, as you can imagine. That's a pretty critical point in somebody's life, especially for a young girl. And so after a number of days of cold shoulder and so forth, and she's a delightful kid, so don't read anything into it, she finally just said to me, why do you have to leave now? Why can't you wait 2 more years, let me graduate from Manti High, and then I'll go on with my life and you can go on with yours. And I looked at my sweet daughter, whom I love immensely, and I just said, Mariah, you know what the problem is? I get up every morning when the alarm goes off, and I shower and get dressed, and I get in my car and I drive down to campus. And when I park my car in the parking lot or on the street, I have to talk myself out of the car. It was pretty intense. We'd done a lot of things at snow. We went through the great 2008, 9, 10 housing crisis, budget cuts, and laid off all kinds of employees, and just had to do some pretty traumatic things. And it was a fascinating experience in my career, but boy, I was having to talk myself out of the car. And I said, I just can't keep doing that for 2 more years. So I was grateful that she was sensitive enough to recognize, okay, I understand that, Dad. She didn't complain again about that move, and ultimately got involved in cheer and all the fun things at Cedar High after we moved there. But it's important, and this is part of why I've talked, I think, at each one of these about, hey, it's summer, be sure you get out, take some time to relax, invest in yourself, read a good book, go for a swim, a hike, or whatever, to make sure that you don't get burnt out. Quite frankly, that we don't want to become zombies showing up for work because of the paycheck or the retirement benefit, but hating every day we come in and having to talk ourselves out of the car. Life is too short, quite frankly, to continue in that environment. So to that extent, if there's some change that we can implement or some new opportunity that you'd be interested in. I think that's part of being a good employer in that process. So the other one is a announcement, and this only really applies to folks that are working here at the TSOB or that come in and are working. DTS has announced a Wi-Fi upgrade. So for all employees working in the TSOB, you have to accept a certificate by Wednesday morning, July 19th. And there was an email that just went out yesterday from DTS. So for those of you working in the building, be mindful of that so you don't get caught without wireless service at some point going forward. With that, Melissa, do you want to talk about the GovOps challenge and the summer party? And I will say, Melissa's going to tell you, we don't have many pictures of places, and I'm guilty of this. I had to fly down to Florida didn't have to, but chose to fly down to Florida to help my little brother out who's moving into a new house. And he needed somebody that could hang 9 ceiling fans and lights and put up blinds and curtain rods and a whole bunch of other things. So it was a work vacation. I was grateful as air conditioning worked because you don't want to go to Florida in July, I can assure you of that. But my favorite deli in the world is in Land O'Lakes, Florida, where my brother lives, and it's Larry's Deli, and it is painted an ugly color, but they're famous for their Cuban sandwiches, which isn't what I get necessarily, but man, the bread is unbelievable. The quantity of meat you get in any sandwich you get there is unbelievable, and then they coat them in garlic butter and press them in a hot press and so forth. And I thought too late I should have taken a picture of Larry's, because to see it on the side of the road, it's probably not a place that you go to or choose to go to unless you knew how good the food is. And every time I visit my brother down there, I end up going to Larry's a couple of times. So if you're going to be in Land O'Lakes, let me know. I'll give you the address for the place so that you can stop in at Larry's. All right, Melissa.
So we had this interesting thing happen last week. I asked a very controversial question. Are you team fry sauce or are you team ketchup? Personally, I'm a ketchup person. Didn't live in Utah my whole life, so I don't sometimes always understand that concept. But anyway, the winner is fry sauce, hands down. But I think I got as many comments about that as I did the picture of the tater tots that I sent everybody. And if you've never been to Spinelli's, you really need to go. They've got great pizza, tacos, burgers, whatever you need. They got it. So we also had a couple of other things that people pointed out to me. One of them is, I think it's pronounced Lizzie's, and it is a restaurant downtown, and they have some great dipping sauces of their own, Mediterranean. And I'm going to just totally not say this correct, but it's Tuum, Tuom, and it's a very heavy garlic dipping sauce that they have that was recommended. And they, the person who told me about this said, you just have to try it. But you also have to allow people to know that you're trying it, because I guess it's pretty heavy on the garlic. Another restaurant that somebody mentioned was the Hideout in Duchesne, where you can get steak on a stone. So if that's your thing, you can go out and do that as well. And we will add those to the GovOps challenge board. I just want to tell everybody, submit your pictures if you can, or just, send a shout out to a restaurant or a place that you like, be it coffee, cookies, shakes, ice cream, frozen yogurt, whatever. Just, put your 2 cents worth in there, because we all want to hear. And I know a lot of people are going out and trying some of these places. The second thing I'm going to talk about is we are going to have a summer fall party again. It will probably be closer to the fall. We're going to do the J-Dogs, because that is a very popular thing as well. And we're going to do it here at the TSOB. I know that isn't necessarily what a lot of people like, but it is a little easier since the bulk of us are across the Wasatch Front. And Destiny, if you will throw your question in the comments, that would be wonderful, and we will get that answered. But be looking for a date for that. Come coming out to me from me at a later point in time.
And then we've also, for some of you that are working St. George and out in regional areas, we're going to do some things and get out and do some visits. And I don't know, Melissa, if you've set those locations.
I have not. I'll be working on those as well. We did the same thing last year, so we will get out and see the people, because it was actually a lot of fun, and we met a lot of great people. We have a lot of great people in GovOps. Kendra is saying there's a lack of ethnic food on our list, so we can certainly add some of those to it. I know if you look at the kudos board, there's a few Mexican restaurants on there, and we'll get a sushi and a ramen category going as well. So if anybody has suggestions for those, just holler and we'll get them out there. Looks like we're getting some comments on that. Anyway, any questions about any of those things, just let me know.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate it. Brooke, I appreciated your note. What happens for those of us who work remote who need a wife on occasion when we are in the office? I don't know that we can help you with the wife, but certainly that was clarified that it's Wi-Fi. And James wrote back, just accept the next time you connect to the UWDN network, you should be able to accept that change and it'll work. So, and a whole bunch of things coming in for food recommendations. Tacos El Jefe in Cedar City. Man, that one just disappeared as soon as I saw it, Scott. That is my kid's favorite Mexican restaurant, so I certainly can endorse that one as well. Any other questions, concerns you want to ask or post out there? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Okay. Seeing none, we won't drag it on. I appreciate that we've had over 500 of you join in here, and so it's great to connect. And I've got to start coming up with a joke to begin these things, or something to get folks laughing as we begin. But again, my high praise and thanks for all that you do for the department and for your divisions individually, but most of all for the customers that we serve, whether they're state agency folks or the general public. We're grateful for all you do and hope you'll have a wonderful summer. Thanks, everybody.